Welcome back for the 7th and final day of the Riley Sewalong. Grab your belt loop piece, and without trimming, you're going to finish one of the long raw edges. You're going to do this by either serging it or using a zigzag stitch. Now take that back over to your pressing station, and you're going to fold in the unfinished edge by 3/8 of an inch with wrong sides touching and give it a good press. Then after you've done that, you are going to fold in the finished edge by 1/4 of an inch so that overlaps the unfinished edge, and once again with wrong sides touching, and give that a good press. Then go over to your sewing machine, and you are going to top stitch along both edges, a 1/16 inch away from the folded edges, down each of the long sides. And then you're going to take that belt loop and you're going to cut it into 5 3.5 inch sections. If there's any left over at the end of 5 sections, you can just toss that. And then turn those belt loops over so that they're wrong sides facing up, and you're going to fold in the ends by about 1/2 of an inch on the top and the bottom, and make sure you get those a really good press. Now we're going to attach those belt loops to the front and the back of our overalls around the waistline. Now I actually like to use this disappearing glue stick. It's really hard to get a pin through this many layers of fabric, and so this is a really good way to kind of put it in place, let it dry, and then you can stitch them. So there's 2 that go in the front, there's 3 that go in the back. You're going to need to refer to your instructions for where to place these, because for different sizes and different size ranges it's different. Okay, once all those belt loops are put in the right place, you're going to go over to your sewing machine and you are going to stitch using a straight stitch. You're going to go back and forth a few times over the top and the bottom to secure. Now this is a lot of layers of fabric, so if your machine struggles a little bit, you can hand crank it a little bit, and that might help you get through. You can also use a hammer to kind of hammer down those fibers before stitching, which helps kind of meld those fibers together and makes it a little bit easier to stitch through. Before going on, we are going to do a little line of stitching to attach the front hip facing to the back hip placket. So go ahead and grab the 2 together, make sure that they're lined up perfectly the way that they would if it was right side out. And you can just go ahead and put a pin in the 2, pull them away from the rest of the overalls, and you're going to do a small line of stitching connecting the 2 somewhere along the bottom edges. This stitching is not going to be visible anywhere. Once again, it's just to kind of connect the 2, keep them from flapping around, and kind of keep everything in the right place. Okay, let's turn our overalls right side out, and we're going to tackle buttonholes. So if you're like me, some of your buttonholes might have either erased or they were starting to look a little bit weird. Maybe, you know, your seam allowance has got a teeny bit off or something, and so they no longer feel like they were in the right place. That is very easy to have that happen. So I am going to go ahead and mark these again. Just know that they should be about 1/4 of an inch from the edge and centered on the waistband. So once those are all marked, we're going to go sew them. It's not a bad idea to go ahead and practice your buttonholes first. Once you feel good about your buttonholes, then you're going to go over to your overalls, and there's 4 buttonholes that you need to sew, 2 of them on the waistband and 2 of them on the hip. I like to put some fray check on my buttonholes just to kind of help give them a little bit more reinforcement. So put that on if you have it or if you want to use it, and then you want to let that dry, and then once they're dry, we're going to open up our buttonholes. There's lots of different ways that you can open up a buttonhole, but I like to use this actual buttonhole chisel tool. So you put a piece of wood underneath and you use a hammer, and it just does a really nice clean opening of the buttonhole. Now that those buttonholes are all open, we need to mark where our buttons are going to go. So make sure that the front is lined up over the back, and you're going to mark the button placement through the open buttonholes, being sure to mark them along the far outside edge of the buttonhole and not in the middle. Now we're going to mark the placement for the buttons on the bib. So these are going to be a 1/2 inch down from the top and 3/4 of an inch in from the outside edge. Now to attach these jean tack buttons, the first thing that I do is I use an awl and I punch a hole in each of the button placement markings that I made. And then you're going to take the pointy back part of each of those buttons and you're going to put them through the holes through the back side. And now it's time to hammer in those buttons. So I like to use an anvil, but really any hard surface will do. And I usually put a piece of scrap fabric on top of the surface just to keep from scratching the shiny part of my button. And of course you'll need a hammer to hammer them in. So go ahead and put the button down on the hard surface, and then you are going to take the tack part of the button and you're going to center it inside of the hole in the button. You're going to need to use your fingers to kind of keep it level, and then you actually just hammer in the back, and then you're going to need to use your fingers to just kind of feel that it's level and that it's all the way in. Remember way back when we were sewing up the crotch seam and we did the top little section as just basting? Well, now you're going to take your seam ripper and you are going to carefully remove those basting stitches on the fly above the dot marking and below the bib. And so this just kind of opens it up and creates a true faux fly. It's still connected along those top stitching lines. It just more resembles a real fly because that section is open. Okay, now to attach those overalls buckles. So start with the strap facing up, and you're going to insert the end of the strap through the slider bar, weaving the strap under the first bar, over the center bar, and back under the other side. Next, you're going to do the same thing with the strap, going through the buckle bar with the buckle facing up. Pull the slider bar and the buckle up along the length of the strap just to create some slack for the next step. So you're going to insert the end of the strap back through the back side of the slider bar, weaving the end over the center bar. So your strap should now resemble kind of like a loop as shown here. Fold in the end of the strap by 1/4 inch, and then you are going to pin it to the underside of the loop strap 1 inch past that center bar. Be extra careful here that you are pinning it in fact to the underside and not to the top. being very careful to keep the rest of the strap out of the way. You're going to go over to your sewing machine and you're going to stitch the end of the strap in place close to the folded edge, back stitching at both ends. Okay, the last thing that we need to do is we need to hem our overalls. So no matter which view you're doing, the overall design assumes that you're going to be rolling the hem twice at 1 inch each time. If you think that you don't want to roll the hem, then you might want to take about 2 inches of length off of the bottom of your overalls at this time. It's just a good time in general to try these on and kind of check the length and see if you want to shorten them at all. Now, once you're happy with the length, then you're going to fold the hem up along the bottom edge by 1/4 of an inch, wrong sides touching all the way around, and give it a really good press. And then you're going to fold the whole thing up again by 1 inch this time, all the way around, pin it and press. Once that's all done, you're going to go over to your sewing machine, and just like we've done many times before, you are going to sew just along that inside folded edge. Now, like we've mentioned, if you're using top stitching thread, you need to do this from the right side of the fabric, in which case you will be sewing this at about like a 7/8 of an inch or a scant 1 inch. But if you are not using top stitching thread, I do think it's easier to just catch that inside folded edge if you do it from the wrong side of the fabric. Now you're going to go ahead and you're going to roll up that bottom edge twice on itself, so at 1 inch each, and then you're going to press it and steam it really well so that it stays in place. And that is it. Your Riley overalls are done. I hope that you love them, and I hope that you go out and you wear them proudly.